Hello and welcome back to the Content Podcast. I thought to myself, it's always a pleasure to do some Man United stuff. And when I came across this individual, I was looking at some tweets and I found myself liking more and more and more of the tweets. So I had to just reach out and speak to this person. She's obviously been on interviews for TalkSport with Sky Sports, but she's most known for obviously her regular appearances on the United Stand. It's the one, the only Beth Tucker. Beth, how are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I can already see the Man United signed shirt in the background, so I'm assuming I'm talking to a fellow Man United fan, which has made my day even better.
Do you know what? I've actually had a few guests on that have said that they want to leave because of the Man United top, but I knew that wouldn't be the case with you. But yeah, I think there's obviously quite a lot to get stuck into at the moment. It's been quite a fascinating season for Man United, and especially moving forward, you know, there is certainly optimism despite all the stuff going on off the pitch. But just very quickly before we get into the Man United stuff, obviously we watched Manchester City last night, and I'm sure you did at least catch the highlights. It was about as a perfect performance as you can get against a very, very good side in Europe. So how scared are you of the treble from Manchester City, and how much would that affect you as a Man United fan?
Yeah, unfortunately, I watched the full game and I went into it. I did go into it thinking City were going to win. Like, Pep really looks like he's got serious recently on a few things. Like, he's taking way less risk with his team selections. All the players look bang up for it. I mean, the performances have been unbelievable recently. Grealish has become like undroppable in that side. He's been unbelievable. So I knew it was going to be a really tough game for Bayern Munich, even though they are obviously a top side in Europe. And then what I was most surprised about, that not surprised, but very impressed by, is how different City were in and out of possession. Obviously, in possession, they were putting men forward. They were going out there to score goals. But when they were out of possession, the back four was very hard to get through. Everyone was back defending. Times, I'm not saying they were parking the bus, but it was like that at certain times. It was really hard for Bayern to get through. So, you know what? Fair play to Man City. A very, very good performance. And I was sat there watching it and I was thinking, I was at a pub quiz at the time. It was on in the background and I was watching it. I was like, they're going to do the treble, aren't they? They're going to do the treble. And if they do the treble, and this is what I keep telling people, there's so many social media fans that I'm not sure and obviously I'm one of them people. You can support Man United from wherever you're from. You don't have to be from Manchester. You can be anywhere in the world. But what you've got to understand is if Man City win the Premier League, win the Champions League and win the FA Cup, which there's a very high likely chance that they are going to end up doing that, it would be devastating for Manchester United because not only are they going to equal our Premier League record of 3 in a row, but they're going to do the treble as well, which is something that we get to hold on to. So any social media fan that are saying they'd rather City do it than Arsenal just because of, I don't know, AFTV or Arsenal fans on Twitter, please rethink your stance because it's going to look like it might come down to Man United having to stop City in the FA Cup, which I really do like believe in these players and I've believe in them a lot more now under Ten Hag, but I don't know if I'm at that point yet. I would be very nervous going into that game.
Oh, tell me about it. I think obviously when everyone asks me about this treble for Man City, I've just denied it wholeheartedly. And then after the game last night, I was on the train home and I was just thinking, they're going to do it, aren't they? So I really hope that they don't. But look, the only positive, I guess, is that it is in Man United's hands to stop them. So obviously, if we get to the final, and then it's very likely, it's probably
or
already...
Real Madrid again. Don't rule Real Madrid out. That's what I've told people because they're going to get past Bayern Munich now. I mean, I just don't see them being able to bounce back from 3-0, especially with how good that City team are at the moment. But Real Madrid in the Champions League, honestly, never write them off. So that could be a story as well.
Yeah, just if all else fails, just rely on Real Madrid. I think that's what we've learned over the last few years. But you obviously mentioned there a little bit about how much you believe more so in the players this season, obviously under Erik Ten Hag. He's approaching, or he might have even surpassed the 50-game mark. I think it's really, really close if it hasn't happened already. So in terms of a short-term reflection, because obviously 50 games isn't exactly, you know, a massive sort of pool of evidence to sort of go off. But so far from what you've seen, you know, given the highs that we've had, probably for the majority of the season, but also there have been a few lows in there. How would you sort of summarize it all up? And then obviously looking into the future as well, how has he made you feel as a Manchester United fan going forward?
It's been a whirlwind. Obviously, there's been highs and there's been extreme lows in the process. Like, it's not all been perfect. I know Man United are talked about continuously in the media every single day. They're the biggest club in the world, whether people like it or not. So, you know, there is negatives that people can zoom into, but for me, it's been overly positive, like more positive than I would have imagined it to be. At the start of this season, we were talking on the United stand where we expected Man United to finish. And I was a big champion of Ten Hag. I was the first person on the United stand to say we need to go and get Erik Ten Hag. I was over the moon when we got him, despite Pochettino. I really did want Erik Ten Hag. I could see it in him that he was going to be a great manager. Them first 2 games, I mean, the media loves it. They already put pressure on him after them 2 games because they were bad, very bad performances. Yeah. But you've got to remember that this Man United team is the worst. It was the worst Man United team ever in history of the Premier League points-wise last season. So to come back from that and be at the place we are at now, won his first trophy, still in the other 2 in the Europa League and the FA Cup, and look promising in both them competitions. Premier League, obviously, there was a short talk of a title race that lasted about 2 weeks, and then we moved on. But top 4 would be an unbelievable achievement. I honestly thought we'd be lucky to get 5th or 6th this season with how poor that squad was, and coming in and under a fresh season under a new manager. That a lot of people are writing off to be, you know, just an Ajax manager. Why is he not been able to do other things in his career at this point? If he's really that good, well, he's coming to the Premier League and he's put in brilliant performances against the likes of Liverpool on that 2-1 win, which he had to bounce back from, and he did it brilliantly. Man City at home, a very, very good performance. Barcelona at home, again, and away, brilliant performances. Obviously, there's been some dips. The 7-0 at Anfield was horrendous. I don't like to bring it up. The 6-3 at the Etihad was awful. Like the 4-1 at Brentford was horrendous. But these are all learning curves for a manager that's coming into the Premier League. And it wasn't just on the manager, it's on the players as well. And that mentality creeping in. It's not, all I'd say is Rome is not going to be built in a day, but there was really promising signs. When Pep first came in, I think he got 3rd in the Premier League. And that City team, I would argue, looking at it, still had some real quality players in there that he had to operate with. The same way Man United do. When Klopp first came into Liverpool, I mean, they were at a really poor point, but 8th in the Premier League. And these are managers that have been unbelievable in the Premier League for, I mean, the last 6-7 years. So you've got to think about it like that and think about the impact Ten Hag's already had, the way he's improved players, the way our style of football is actually really entertaining to watch. The way I believe that, you know, when we face it in the FA Cup, I don't go into that game thinking we're already getting beat, which I used to do. Like I go into it thinking if we set up right today, we've got a really good chance. City are the best team in the world, in my opinion. So, you know, small steps, but I think we are going to get there. And overall, I'm rambling on, but I really like Erik Ten Hag. I can see a really positive future. He's a manager that I generally think could be here for like many years if things go right and the new ownership, you know, comes in and it works out and he gets the backing that he deserves.
Yeah, without a doubt. And to be honest, I don't think you could have said as many words under the previous ownership, the stewardship under Solskjaer. Do you know what I mean? So it's certainly a positive that it's got Man United fans talking and with a bit of optimism. And at the very minimum, I think Man United fans deserve a bit of optimism over the last sort of decade or so. So it's been quite difficult.
A little bit carried away at one point, but you know,
it's fine. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, we've got to take the small wins in life, haven't we, as Man United fans at the moment? But you know, you mentioned there a little bit about obviously the playing style and how much it's changed, and I think that's obviously very easy on the eye in terms of how Man United are playing. Obviously, there are a few sort of teething problems in terms of, you know, playing out from the back, for example. And I don't think it would be fair if I did a podcast with yourself and not mention you know who. He's almost become the Lord Voldemort in your life, hasn't he? That you just can't say his name anywhere. Of course, I'm talking about David de Gea. But I think, do you know what it is? I think the more that the weeks go on, he's reminding me so much of Trent Alexander-Arnold. And initially you're going to think, what, they're different positions, one's outfield, one's in goal. But in terms of the golfing class within their own ability, so obviously with Trent going forward, he's probably the best right back that we've seen for a very long time in probably Europe, not just in the Premier League. He's absolutely scintillating going forward. But defensively, we saw obviously on Sky Sports how much the pundits were just laying into him really for his performances, very, very basic mistakes that he was making. And then now you look at David de Gea, I think for shot stopping, I will probably go out on a limb and say he's probably the best I've ever seen at shot stopping. You know, over the years, some of the things he's done, and even this season where there obviously have been question marks over him, the shot stopping has been nothing short of sensational. But then you talk about playing out from the back, then you talk about his distribution, and ultimately that's where Erik Ten Hag's attacks are going to start from. Whether or not we, you know, get the ball back from an attack, whether it's from a goal kick or a shot that's on target that De Gea saved. you know, the golfing class, as I was mentioning with Trent, it's starting to become more apparent now with De Gea. And I just want to sort of ask you, obviously, look, and I apologize in advance, because, you know, because you've probably been asked to death, not just on podcasts, but even probably in the street. But how much of a priority is De Gea's replacement? Because obviously we know, we don't have to go over it, that you see him as a massive target in terms of a replacement. But going into the summer, let's say, fingers crossed anyway, that Erik ten Hag does have 250-300 odd million pounds to spend. How high do you rank the De Gea replacement in that rebuild in the summer?
Well, I rank it I rank it highly. As you will know, obviously I spoke about this many times before, but I will just go over it just to kind of, you know, if people haven't seen, just to give a little bit of an overview on this. I think with the De Gea situation, it's so split in the fan base. He's got a really big cult following, which is understandable. He, you know, people, I would probably say he is a legend at the club. Like, even though I want to get rid of him, I can admire the fact he's a legend. And I've loved De Gea under previous seasons. Honestly, I really have. And it's nothing personal with him. Like, I wish he could do all the things that he couldn't do because of what he has done for the club and how good he is in certain areas. So he has that, you know, following that think, you know, a goalkeeper just needs to keep the ball at the back of the net. And I completely understand that point of view. I can understand it. I can take it on. I get it. And then you have some people that do agree with me that say, you know what, in the modern game, in the modern age, you need a goalkeeper that really suits the manager's style of football and is going to be able to, you know, it's a very vital, important position. Everything starts from the back in football, with the way especially Erik ten Hag wants to play. And you need to have a goalkeeper that can, for me, do all of the factors and do them to a high standard, not just kind of one or two. So that's now come into it with David De Gea. So as you said, I completely agree. David De Gea is one of the best shot stoppers in the world. I don't know if I'll go as far to say the best, but definitely one of the best shot stoppers in the world. And at one point in his career, definitely was the best. And, you know, he's improved distribution is slightly, but it's really not at a high level. It's a very low level, and distribution puts us under pressure massively. People will see a lot of the times he's making saves because of mistakes he's made due to being under pressure. In the box, you see often teams target us off corners, off set pieces on De Gea because they know he's not going to be able to come out and get it. Coming off his line again, I'll just give you this as an example. In the Arsenal-Liverpool game, which we were all saying is probably one of the best Premier League games we've seen in a very long time, in the last moment, granted it wasn't a great pass from Martinelli, he spreads it over to Saka. Immediately, Alisson is there in the right position, and I just question
that wouldn't
whether.
Yeah,
exactly. And then, you know, that could lost Arsenal the league. Like, these are really crucial, important moments. And I say to people, Man City, we all say is the best team in the world. Not many people think Ederson's the best keeper, me included. I don't think he is. But would Man City swap Ederson for De Gea? They would never in a million years do that because of the way City play. Is he as good as a shot stopper as De Gea? No, he's definitely not. But Ederson suits them way more because they're defensively compact. They keep possession. He doesn't need to be, because it's if you get a shot on it, Man City, it's a rarity because of how good they are at keeping possession, and, you know, the way that they play and the defense and the midfield and the attack, it's sustaining that pressure. But Ederson's great at everything else, which helps them play like that. If you understand what I mean. Even Liverpool, like, they've been awful this season, but everyone will agree they've been one of the best teams in the world for the last couple of years. Would they swap Alisson for De Gea? No, they wouldn't do that because of how important he is to the way they play. And, you know, if you want to play high intensity football, keeping possession and build pressure and pin teams in their own half, you need a keeper that can also do that. So that's my stance on David De Gea. But is he the main priority? I actually would say no, because it's not as if he's completely incapable. He's not horrible at these things. He's just not as, you know, as good as I would like. David De Gea, for me personally, will be replaced. Will it be this summer? I'm not sure. I think we need a striker before we probably need a goalkeeper. And you would argue a midfielder as well before potentially a new goalkeeper. I think for me, it's my third priority on the list. Some people would say centre-back. I still think it's centre-back we're covered enough, rather than, you know, I would spend that money on a goalkeeper. But with the ownership situation, with how much money we're going to spend in the summer, and what looks like David De Gea is going to be getting a new contract, I'm thinking maybe next summer will be the time you get a new keeper in. But for me, it's a high priority. I would put it into my top four. Definitely, I'd put it into my top three priority signings. And, you know, people might not agree, but at the end of the day, I tell you, it will happen. It will under Ten Hag. It will.
Yeah, it certainly will. And I think it is almost a sort of a sense of inevitability once obviously the outfield team sort of you know, fixed in the way that Erik ten Hag wants it to be. I think
Honest-
De Gea is probably on the next firing line, isn't he?
Sorry, not to cut in again, and you know, Erik ten Hag loves stats, and some people say you shouldn't just look at stats in football. When he's just mentioned in his press comments, I was just watching, he was talking about how the team's much better when Martial's playing. Just
Yeah,
look
yeah.
at the stats. He mentions them a lot. He'll be looking at David de Gea and his stats, and yeah, he's made some brilliant saves and crazy talent. He honestly is crazy talented, but he'll be looking at how the team can play better without him. He'll know these things. And with a goalkeeper as well, you can say with, you know, an outfield player, stats can be really kind of, they can't be falsified, but they can be manipulated a little bit, and they can be out of context sometimes because of how many minutes players play, the opposition, you know, in different roles what they play in. But with a keeper, they're usually playing, especially as a first team keeper, you're playing every single game of the year, and the very set areas that you get kind of monitored in, and they're not good, especially when you look at the rest of the Premier League keepers.
Don't hold back. I mean, you know, you can be honest on this podcast, you know. But no,
I
yeah.
know. Honestly, wait for the comments to come in. You know what to talk about. What I would say is you won't change my mind.
Yeah.
People DM me saying, Beth, I need to tell you this is why David de Gea is the best keeper in the world. I appreciate your opinion. You will not change my mind. I go to Old Trafford every week and watch it with my own eyes. Like sometimes I think on TV you can't see it, like how bad it can be sometimes when he's distributing.
Yeah, because you could even just like his starting position and stuff. Obviously, if the camera on TV that people are watching, they're not going to have the keeper in focus. They're going to follow the ball, and you do obviously get a little bit. And do you know what? I will be perfectly honest. You know, I don't think I saw it as much as you did. And then once obviously I started seeing you talk about it, and then it was just almost like the world versus Beth against this. I'll just
Once you know it though,
yeah, you can't unsee it.
once
It's
you
one of
see
them
it, you
things.
can't unsee it. Like I'm at Old Trafford, and week in, week out, I'm like, I'm gonna have to go on the show and say he wasn't very good today, and I don't want to because I know the stick I'm gonna get. Like I know it. And then people in the comments, how could I have, you know, obviously Mark Goldbridge, he does United fan. I have Mark, he's a massive De Gea fan. He kind of lights the fire when it comes to the De Gea debate. He'll be giving him near enough man of the match on the player ratings, and I'm like, you've not just done that to a big community of people. Like sometimes he is deserving of it. Like if he's deserving of man of the match, I will give him it. I can't remember what game it was, but it was like probably like a month or so ago. He had a brilliant performance, and you know his kicking was fine, and he didn't really come under pressure when it came to corners. And I came on and I said, he's man of the match today. Like he is. I can't argue against it. Like it's not an agenda. It's just like if I see it with my own eyes, I'm never going to lie about what I see in front of me and my opinion. So
yeah, definitely. And that's I think that's probably why you've got to where you've got to. You've got to, you know, stick to your guns, haven't you, and stick on the firm ground that you're on. But just quickly then, obviously with the summer looming, and I know it's going to have to be a conversation taken with a little bit of a pinch of salt, if you like, because of obviously the ownership and how much up in the air really it is at the moment. But just give us, obviously, I know you mentioned there and you alluded to a little bit about perhaps a midfielder and a striker, but if you could just, you know, throw a couple of names out there that you would like to see come through the door, and you know, be the individuals and the players that will come in to almost be them final pieces of the jigsaw for Erik ten Hag to really push on at Man United.
yeah, obviously it's really hard to say because I don't know what the budget's going to be.
Yeah,
but in an ideal world, we'll talk about in an ideal world here. Well, we've just been linked to Bellingham today, which I don't think is going to happen. But I mean, he would be unbelievable. Like I understand people that say, you know, De Jong would fit us way more, and you know, we need a midfielder that's really possession based. But Jude Bellingham's just such a talent that it's not something you'd want to miss out on. So whatever we could do to get him, he'd be up there on my priority list. But my main priority before anything, absolutely, is a striker. And if I had to pick one, I am in the Osimhen camp on this one. I know there's Harry Kane, there's Gonzalo Ramos, there's a lot of options out there. I really like the idea of Gonzalo Ramos because of his link-up play and because of his age. And I think in his Erik ten Hag team, like a player like Jesus, what he's done to Arsenal would be brilliant for us. And I feel like that's what the type of player Gonzalo Ramos is. So I wouldn't be against going getting him. It's just the money that's ridiculous.
yeah.
But when I look at Man United, I think we really need an out and out goal scorer, someone that's going to be scoring goals for years at Manchester United, someone that's you put a cross into the box, they're going to be getting on the end of it. Like Bruno Fernandes should be off the scale with assists, and it's really hard. And I say to people, like, I don't want to be disrespectful, but having Wout Weghorst in the box is like shooting blanks. It genuinely is. It's so tough for people around him to be able to, facilitate him to even score a goal. Like the fact that we're third in the Premier League with a striker, our most important position, been majority after the World Cup has been Wout Weghorst up front, and that's not me trying to come for Wout Weghorst. Martial should have been fit. Martial's definitely a better option than that. But even with Martial fit, we need an out-and-out goal-scoring number 9. So 𝗖𝗵 will be up there for me. He's fast, so players aren't automatically going to be occupying Rashford. They have to occupy both, which gives room in the defence. He's tall. I mean, he's runs in behind are really, really good, and he's experienced as well. Like, they're going to win Serie A. He's been doing it in the Champions League, so still 24. I do like 𝗖𝗵, but then for people who are saying they want Harry Kane, I can understand it. It's just, for me personally, that's been and gone. But if we got Harry Kane, I'd be over the moon. I just need someone who's going to put the ball in the back of the net, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I'm not ruling Harry Kane out. But if I had to pick someone, it'd be 𝗖𝗵. And then as a goalkeeper, I really, really like Diogo Costa from Porto. With his feet, he's incredible. He can come off his line. He's demanding in the box. Yes, he has a few mistakes in him. He still definitely does, but he's very, very young. He's got the talent, though, and the potential to be one of the best keepers. Like, he genuinely does. I think he could go on to be like an Alisson type figure, like the potential he has. So 70 million release clause, which is why I don't think we'll do it this summer, but really good option. I really like David Raya. Prefer Costa, but I do like David Raya. Again, I think if he went to a top club, people would take him a lot more seriously as being a goalkeeper of a very, very good level. And then, when you look at the midfield, there's many options we could go for. I've already said Jude Bellingham is dream world. Don't think we'll do it. 𝗍𝗪 is one that has been put onto the radar, very, very low key, but he doesn't look like we've really kind of targeted him, but he looks like a really promising young talent. There is a lot of hidden gems out there that you can definitely go and get. I mean, there's a Sporting midfielder, I can't quite remember his name. Is it Paredes that people were talking to me about that looks really promising?
I think I saw that.
There's loads we can go for, but in the grand scheme of things, in my ideal window, if I just had to put it on paper, would probably be 𝗖𝗵, Diogo Costa. I like Kim Min-jae from Napoli again, but is Napoli going to really let you have 2? And then we definitely need a midfielder, but I can't probably nail down one because we've been linked to so many.
Yeah, do you know what? It's, on one hand, it's really exciting because you think, we've got a manager now who's not going to sign players, based off merit or what they've been making the headlines for. A little bit like what 𝗖𝗪 was doing. Realistically, all of his signings were reactionary, weren't they? I mean, Sancho's done really well. Let's sign him. He's young and he's English. Let's get him in. Harry Maguire as well. They all fit a similar type of mold, if you know what I'm trying to say. So I think, when you have a sort of a strategic manager, a pragmatic manager who sort of knows what he wants and doesn't necessarily always go for the big names. Before his career at Man United, he didn't exactly splash the cash at Ajax because, as we all know, that's not really the way of operating in the transfer window. So he's clearly got an eye for them almost bargains, if you like, if there ever is such a thing in the summer window at the moment.
But how successful was his last transfer window? And let's be honest, he picked all them himself. The scouts had done their reporting, and Erik ten Hag came in and went, nope, I don't want Torres, I want Martinez. I don't want, he picked all them players, and I would say all of them have been a success to some extent.
Yeah, without a doubt, I think all of them would have a shout for obviously being in the top 5 or 10 signings post Sir Alex Ferguson, which is crazy to say because he hasn't even been here a year. So yeah, I think that sort of speaks volumes, doesn't it? Either way you look at it, does that mean Erik ten Hag's been really good, or have Man United's transfers just been really bad? I think it's probably a bit of both, isn't it? But
yeah, it is.
in terms of the Man United stuff, we'll wrap it up before we obviously go a little bit more into obviously your own career personally. So obviously, as you sort of touched on at the start of the podcast, Man United are still in the other 2 cup competitions. There's a massive possibility that they could do a treble. We know it wouldn't be the treble, but nevertheless, to even discuss that at this stage of the season, considering how we started off in the first 2 games, is pretty bonkers, if we're being perfectly honest. So, with your realistic hat on, thinking with your head and not your heart, can Man United do it? Can they win all 3 trophies with 1 already in the bank?
People have known me for this on the United stand. I'm never going to duck a question like this, and I'm very, very positive. I'm going to say, yeah, we can definitely do it. We can. I'm not going to say 100%. That nearly came out my mouth. Then. we can definitely do it. Erik ten Hag, he takes cup competitions very seriously. We've seen that so far. Newcastle, do not take anything away from Newcastle. They are a very, very, very good side. And at Wembley, I wouldn't say we made it look easy, but it wasn't a difficult game for us. The whole team turned up and we had a game plan and it worked perfectly. Obviously, the Europa League, there's that potential clash with Mourinho that I'd be just box office to watch. So I think, to be honest with you, I think we're going to win the Europa League. I'm quite confident in that. What I think is the less likely is to beat City in the FA Cup. And I'm not even writing off Brighton either, because Brighton are a top side that are doing really well at the moment. I'm not sat here saying we're automatically going to beat Brighton and be in the City in the final against City, because, you know, Brighton are a top side. I expect us to beat Brighton. And where I think we could come unstuck when you're looking at the treble, which is really realistically a poor man's treble, but I would absolutely take it after what I thought would be at the start of this season. I would be buzzing over the moon about it. But the way Manchester City are at the moment, that hunger they'll have to do the treble. I mean, because if you think about it, I mean, I think the FA Cup's the last one, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
the last one.
because of obviously
So,
the World Cup, all the schedules
oh,
even more, hasn't it? So yeah, best of luck with the nerves on that day, I think.
it's the last one. So, you know, and with these players, I just think at Wembley against City, with the treble on the shoulders, I don't know if they've got the bottle yet to be able to withstand that yet. But I'd like to think so.
Yeah, definitely. I think the hope is the thing that kills you, doesn't it? I think
Yeah.
that's one thing as a Man United fan we've learnt about, really. But yeah, obviously, you know, I reached out to you on Twitter I think it was probably less than a week ago now. I said to you just before we click record, you know, I found myself agreeing with a lot of stuff that you say, which, you know, initially isn't a good idea for a podcast because you like to argue, as you know. Come on, it always makes for better viewing, doesn't it? But you know, I just certainly, you know, I've just seen a lot of work that you do, and obviously over the last few weeks and stuff, you know, and I was doing social media work at TalkSport for quite a while, and obviously a few interviews got sent back of yourself, and you know, I tried my best to get them posted and stuff like that, because you know, I just like to see people, you know, just go for their careers and just show genuine passion for things. And I just wanted to, you know, take a bit of time, because I don't think, obviously, with all the work that you do, you don't really get to speak about your own journey and your own career to sort of where you've got to now. So, you know, sort of just take the floor, really. You know, how did your journey go in terms of getting to where you are now, and how early did you sort of realize you wanted to go into this kind of thing, and when did you understand that, you know, it's not just sort of a passion and you could make a career out of it, kind of thing?
Well, I appreciate you for asking that question and wanting to know more. I appreciate that a lot. But honestly, it's been a very fun journey so far. So I'm only 21 years old, so I'm only like right at the start of where I want to be in the future. But to get to where I am now, like, it has been a little bit of a journey. So basically, the way it started is I've always been into football. And be prepared, this might be a bit of a long-winded story. I've always been into football. I always tell people it started out when, you know, when I was little, my mum and dad split up. I was at my dad's on the weekends, at my mum's in the week. So at the weekends, my dad used to sit me in front of the TV, or would be taking me to Old Trafford, because I only live 20 minutes away from Old Trafford, and I'd be watching the football all weekend. Like, there was no if or buts about it. And do you know what? I loved it, and I got really, really into it. My dad says, like, he's raised, like, you know, like, I am honestly, when I'm at the games, I'm fully like people sometimes, you know, because thankfully in football now, people are taking girl football fans really seriously, but there's still a long way to go. And people will say to me often, you support United, like, you like football? And I'm like, yes, like, that can happen. And my dad always says that she's the biggest fan I know, and all of this stuff. So it started off just like that, and, you know, going to games and being into football. And then I was always really into media, creativity, and I very much into English as well. So after college, I did my A-levels and I went on to university. And at university, I did media and journalism at Liverpool, actually. So, you know, that wasn't great. Klopp signs everywhere. That was in Liverpool in a really good era as well. Klopp was just getting things off the ground, like the Champions League, all of that. So I was like, no, not for me. But do you know what? I really, really enjoyed uni. And when I was there, I had to do a placement. So I reached out to United Stand because I think it was COVID times at that point, and I just said, look, if there's anything I can do, I really need it for my placement. And I enjoy watching the channel because I watched it because I was a United fan. In COVID, I got into it quite a bit because there's nothing else to do. No football was on. So yeah, Mark just said to me, which is, you know, for Mark Goldbridge, he said to me, just send in a video of yourself speaking about United and we'll see what we can do. So I sent him a video, and anyway, the next morning he replied straight away and was like, we really want to get you on the channel, like, we're really interested in you. And so I did like a little video with Mark introducing myself to the channel, and I thought it was only going to be like a little short thing, and then in the end I just ended up staying around. And he eventually wanted me to come on full time, and I do stuff now, like not only in front of camera, like loads of stuff behind the scenes, planning out stuff for the future, planning out stuff for the season. I obviously completed my degree, so I've got some skill set there that people sometimes don't know about, and it just went from there. But on Twitter, obviously, I didn't even have a football Twitter before this. I didn't have it, and he was like, you should probably make one, because
Good idea.
you're gonna and people want to know. And it just started growing and growing and growing. So at the start it was weird to me, because I'd never encountered some stuff like that before, and now is at that point where I see comments all the time, positive and negative, and I just laugh at them. Like I'd take them so, like, I used to be like, oh my gosh, someone said that I have a really bad opinion, and I'd be like thinking about it for like the next hour, and now I'm like,
it takes a little bit of time to get
laughing.
used to it, don't it? But do you know what I think? It's almost surprising now if I get the positive comments. Do you know what I mean? I think, wow, like they're the ones that, like, I think, oh my
Thank
god,
you.
like, oh yeah, wow. Whereas it used to be the other way around. But no, carry on. I think
Especially
it's
with
just a
Talk
wonderful
Sport as well,
story.
because obviously you have
Yeah,
such a diverse type of audience, and basically what I would say to people is, I'm not saying like I'm big or anything like that, but the bigger you get, the more you're gonna get, and that's a good thing at the end of the day. Like the fact that you're making people stop and think, and even if people disagree with your opinion, like that is the world we live in. Not everyone's going to agree with everything, and it's a good thing. You're encouraging conversation, and this is what me and Mark always speak about. Like, you've got to try and encourage debate, encourage conversation, and I'm really proud of what we do at the United Stand. Sometimes it gets some stick for dividing the fan base,
yeah.
which I think social media does anyway. But I think what the United Stand does actually is it brings together a lot of people from all over the world to talk about something they love, and just to be part of that is amazing. So yeah, to get to this point, worked hard at uni, ask the right questions. I always say to people, don't ever be afraid of a no. Like, if you get a no, you've just not asked the right person. If I want to do a show in the United Stand, sometimes I have to ask Mark about 10 times before he says yes. So, not everyone's going to say yes to everything, and you just keep asking the questions, and believe in yourself as well is really important, and believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And that was such a good answer that it almost answered my next question, which was a bit of advice for, obviously, the sort of the youngsters coming up. But no, like you said, I think you sort of, well, definitely leading by example. You've got the bit between your teeth, it seems, and you just keep going with it, and the levels of consistency are really important as well, aren't they? So what, I do genuinely wish you all the best, to be honest. But there are just one or two couple of questions left. Very quickly, just before you can sort of, tell the listeners and the watchers where they can find you and your brilliant work, I've got a bit of a question for you, and I'm hoping that it would be a little bit difficult compared to some of the other questions you've had. So would you take Manchester City winning the treble if it meant United win the Europa League and David de Gea gets replaced in the summer?
No, I wouldn't. And you know what? I can understand why you think that'd be a difficult question, because I want him to be replaced, and obviously I want Man United to win a trophy. But the thing is, what gets me is what people need to understand is this will go down in history. And you've got to understand, Man City don't have history. They will have history when they get a treble, and they'll be able to say it for years to come. So I think Ten Hag's going to win many trophies at Man United. So I'd rather take City not winning the treble and keeping De Gea, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I think that's probably a perfect way to sort of end this podcast, isn't it? But just as I say, very, very quickly, if you can, just sort of let the listeners know where they can find you, where they can find all your work and stuff like that, because I'm sure after this they'll be certainly wanting a little bit more.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, and I hope everyone enjoyed and didn't, take things too seriously. No one's going to be coming to me in my DMs later. Actually, do bring it on. I appreciate it. No, on obviously YouTube, you'll find me on the United Stand. I'm often on there, but on my social media, it is at Beth 𝗵𝗃 on Twitter, a bit of a rhyme there, and at Beth Tucker __ on Instagram, posting all things football Man United. So yeah, if you want to come and follow up, please do. And thank you for listening, and thank you for having me on as well. I really appreciate it.
No, no worries at all. Trust me, the pleasure was all mine. Like I said just a little bit earlier on, keep the brilliant work up. The fact that you're only 21, to be honest, it's making me feel, worried, to be honest, at this new
How old are you?
generation. I'm 24, so I'm only a few years older than
Come
you.
on, you're not.
But still, I'm just comparing where I was at 21, and I was still working in a warehouse sorting parcels out at 21. So
Everyone moves at a different pace.
exactly. But no,
and that's another bit of advice to leave the podcast on. Never ever think you're too late on something. If you want to start, just start it.
There you go. See, constantly, this is what you need to follow. I think you need to sack the football off and start an inspirational podcast instead, Beth.
Yeah.
You've got some big
We'll start
potential.
one together.
Yeah, definitely. Just let me know when you want and we'll get it going. But no, jokes aside, massive thank you once again. I've really enjoyed watching your stuff online, and also obviously having the pleasure to have a conversation with yourself personally. So, best of luck for the rest of the season. Best of luck for your career. And I'm very sure that we'll hopefully be meeting at the top one day where we want to go.
Hopefully we'll work together in the future. I can see it happening.
Definitely. We've planted the seed now, haven't we? So there's only one way it's going to go. So thanks a lot again. And like I said, best of luck. And I really hope that you have a positive season supporting Man United, as I will as well. So yeah, thanks a lot. And yeah, like I said, take care and keep up the brilliant work. But unfortunately, that's pretty much all we have time for. A massive thank you for everyone to listen, and of course a massive thank you for Beth for taking the time out to speak all things Man United, and also share a few of her pearls of wisdom, if you like. But as always, like, subscribe, follow on all the social media. You know where to find the podcast by now. But until next time, please, as I say, get involved for more content by the content.